Episode 1: The Voice in the Salt Ring. The salt ring was still there, 25 years old, cracked in places, scattered by insects, softened by time, but it had never been broken. Not completely, not where it mattered. Iris Vale stood in the attic of her father's house, barefoot on wooden boards that groaned like they remembered. She didn't know why she was crying. She didn't remember starting. All she knew was this: the ring had been drawn for her. The attic was sealed. Her father had bricked it shut himself, years before he died, alone, screaming, with salt under his nails, and wax in his throat. When they broke the wall, they found no furniture, no blood, only the ring, in a single sentence, scratched into the floor with a ritual blade. Complete what I couldn't, or it completes itself. She didn't believe in rituals, not really, but the notebook in her father's safe told a different story. 12 rites, 12 circles, each one performed, each one left behind a scar, and one still open. The 13th, the first page was labeled, "The Voice in the Salt Ring," instructions scribbled in Latin, marginalia in red ink, photographs glued between the lines, blurry, unholy, desperate, one sentence repeated 4 times: "Do not speak inside the ring." Iris Saturday at the edge, legs trembling, lungs tight. She placed the cassette recorder on the floor, pressed record, and whispered, "I don't believe in you, but I'm here." At first, silence, then, low, animal, like something buried beneath the boards had just begun to wake. She stared at the center of the salt circle. It darkened, not wet, not shadowed, darkened like a thought forming in the mouth of a sleeping god. The air thickened, her ears rang, and, ton, a voice, childlike, but not young, like a memory wearing a child's throat. "You came back?" Iris frowned. She hadn't said anything. "You were the 13th, it whispered. "You just didn't know it yet." The ring sparked, not flame, intention. The board shook beneath her. The recorder clicked off on its own, and from the center of the ring, a handprint formed, small, tail, pressed up from beneath. Iris ran, not out of fear, but recognition, because somewhere deep in her bones, a memory that wasn't hers, had whispered, "We never finished what we started." And on the recorder, when she played it back that night, there was no voice, only one sound, repeating over and over, until the tape melted in her hands, scratching from the inside of the salt. Episode 2: Rite of the Hollow Reflection. There was a mirror behind the attic wall. Iris hadn't seen it before. It was covered in black cloth, stitched with red thread, sealed like a wound. Her father had hidden it, not to protect her, but to delay her. The journal had only one line beneath: "Rite to. Do not let it blink first." She didn't want to unwrap it. Even touching the fabric made her bones ache. Her fingers itched, like her blood was trying to pull away from her skin. Still, she pulled the cloth down, and saw nothing. Not her face, not the attic, just dark, as if the mirror had forgotten how to reflect. She reached forward. The glass was cold, too cold, and it pulsed, like it had a heartbeat. And, she saw herself. But it wasn't her. The figure in the mirror looked like Iris. Same eyes, same scar on her cheek, but her expression was wrong. Too still, too knowing, and she didn't blink, not once. Iris leaned closer. Her breath fogged the glass, but the reflection didn't move. Then it smiled, low, crooked, almost sad, and whispered from the other side, "You looked away last time. Will you watch this time?" Iris stepped back. The mirror flashed. No, light, memory, images surged into her. 12 people in black robes, standing in a circle, chanting in a forgotten tone. Her father among them, younger, terrified, holding a mirror, just like this one. And in the center, a girl, bound, mouth sewn shut, eyes wide open, watching them all. The vision ended. The mirror went black again, and Iris screamed, because in the reflection, the girl was gone, and behind her, in the attic, a single thread of red thread, hung in there, and written in dust across the glass, "Your reflection has started to remember you." That night, Iris covered every mirror in the house, but when she woke, her phone's screen was cracked from the inside, and her front-facing camera wouldn't stop recording. On playback, no sound, no movement, just her face, staring back, and blinking once every 17 seconds, even when she looked away. Episode 3: They danced with blindfolded eyes. The journal called it "The Spiral Walls." Third rate, oldest step. It wasn't written in full, just a sketch, a circle with 13 footprints, and the phrase, "Turn toward what sees you first." Iris knew this room, the ballroom on the 2nd floor, long sealed, curtains moth-eaten, air sour with dust and something more human. But the floorboards, They gleamed, as if someone had been polishing them. From below, she laid out the instructions, followed her father's sworn footsteps, lit 13 black candles in a ring around the room, and blindfolded herself. Because that was the rule, no eyes must meet. The chooser does not like to be seen. She pressed play on the old reel-to-reel. The tape wound, and then began. A waltz, faint, wrong, like someone had transcribed music they only half remembered. Iris stepped into the ring, hands trembling, toes grazing the center of something older than rhythm. She moved, a low, turn, step, following the pattern etched faintly in chalk. It was silent at first, just her breathing and the distorted music. But on the fourth turn, she heard it, a second pair of feet, not behind, not beside, across, dancing in time, not clumsy, not hostile, just waiting. She didn't stop. To stop would break the circle, and the journal was clear. If the dance breaks, the thing that watches must choose. The air grew colder, heavier. She felt a hand brush past her waist, not touching, just reminding that she wasn't dancing alone. She whispered, "Who are you?" And from the dark, a voice like breath through bone, "I am the 13th who was never invited." The music slowed, stretched, unraveled, and the footsteps opposite hers grew louder, closer, as if the distance was being erased, one turn at a time. Then she stumbled. Her foot hit the edge of the chalk ring. The music cut out. The silence screamed, and the voice whispered, right beside her ear, "Now I get to choose." The blindfold fell, but the room was empty. Candles burnt blue. The chalk was gone, and on the floorboards, scored deep into the wood, "One always falls, one always follows, and one always watches." That night, Iris' shoes were still covered in chalk, but she hadn't worn them home, and her phone's pedometer showed exactly 13,013 steps, all in a circle. Episode 4: The Tree That Grew Through the Floor. It wasn't there yesterday. The floorboards in her father's study had always creaked, but now they were cracked, split down the center, a thin, jagged line, like a mouth learning to speak, and from the gap, something green, a sapling, small, wrong, its bark was to pale, its leaves to black, its shape to still, as if it was holding its breath, until she noticed it. Iris knelt beside it, touched the edge of a leaf. It was warm. She opened the journal to write for. There was no title, only a page half burned, half torn, but scrawled at the top, barely visible beneath smudges of ash. The root that remembers. She tried to pull the sapling up. It didn't move. She dug around it. There was no soil, no roots, just wood, and beneath the wood, flesh, not hers, not her father's, but something breathing, something remembering. And from the cracked floor, a whisper, "We planted it inside him, but it chose you." She stumbled back, hit the bookshelf. Books fell. One opened. Inside, a dried leaf, pressed flat, etched with text, not written, tamed. The lines on the leaf spelled, "The 13th circle never dies. It grows." That night, the sapling was taller, a foot high. Its bark had cracked open to reveal something beneath. Teeth, not sharp, not jagged, but human. She poured salt around it. The salt turned red. She lit a candle. It went out on its own. She touched the bark again and felt something think back, not speak, think, and inside her chest, a memory surfaced. A man, naked from the waist up, with his spine split open, roots threaded through his lungs, eyes blinking in sap. He whispered to her in the vision, "I carried the circle, but the seed was always yours." She woke screaming, ran back to the study. The sapling was now 6 feet tall and blooming, not flowers, fingernails. At the base of the trunk, something moved, a lump beneath the floorboards, a heartbeat, and on the wood, "If you don't finish the circle, it finishes you." Episode 5, Circle 7, written in ash. The journal skipped Circle 5 and 6. Those pages had been torn out, burned at the edges, as if whoever performed them didn't survive long enough to explain. But Circle 7, it was still there, and it wasn't written in ink. The paper was gray, soft, flaky. When Iris brushed her fingers across the text, the words smeared like soot. She lifted her hand, ash clung to her skin, and beneath it, more writing appeared, layered, buried, stacked, like multiple voices had tried to overwrite each other, and none of them were strong enough to erase the others. In the center of the page, one phrase pulsed darker than the rest. Only ash remembers the shape of the flame. She turned the page. Nothing, just a blank sheet, until she lit a match. 10 letters bloomed, words hidden in heat. Circle 7 must be copied, but not with pen. Burn your doubt, write with what's left. Iris stared at the fireplace. then at the shoebox under her father's bed. Inside, old letters, failed spells, a photograph of the 12 who started the ritual. Younger, braver, unaware, she held the photo over the flame, watched it curl, hiss, vanish, then took the ash, dipped her finger in it, and began to write. But the journal resisted her. The page pulsed, buzzed, spit the ash back. Because it wasn't her doubt she was burning. She stood, walked to her father's desk, opened the final drawer. There, wrapped in silk, was the parchment that ruined them all. The first translation, the original mistranslation. What they thought was a summoning, was a binding. What they thought was protection, was bait. She took the parchment, burned it, collected the ash in her hands, mixed it with spit, with blood, and began again. This time, the journal let her write. The ash sank into the page, not sitting atop it, merging, and when she finished the circle, the ink faded, the flame went out, and her mouth opened on its own, not wide, not screaming, just reciting. We tried to control memory, but memory was never ours. It waited, in teeth, in glass, in root, in salt, and in ash. The journal shook, pages flipped on their own, and beneath the 7th circle, another line etched itself. You are the 8th now. The circle no longer needs permission. That night, her fingertips stained everything she touched. Even water turned gray, and in her sleep, her father whispered, "Don't let it ride the 13th without you." Episode 6, The Mirror That Watches First. Reflected terror, cinching glass when the ritual is not to see yourself, but to be seen first. The mirror had reappeared, not the one in the attic, not the shattered one in the hallway. This was older, taller, framed in iron that pulsed warm to the touch. It stood in the guest bedroom, where no one had slept since her father locked the door 20 years ago. But now it was wide open, and the mirror was waiting. The journal didn't describe the 6th circle. It only said, "Do not be the first to look." But Iris had already looked. She looked the moment she opened the door, and something behind the glass had already been watching her. She approached slowly. The surface was still, not dusty, not smudged, but it did not show her. Not at first. It showed the room, empty, lit only by candlelight. And then, it showed her, as she had never seen herself. Eyes darker, posture bent, something whispering over her shoulder. That wasn't there. She reached toward the glass, and the reflection flinched. It stepped back, then forward again, not in sync with her. And then it spoke. "You shouldn't have seen me yet." She frowned. The voice didn't echo in the room. It echoed inside her jaw, behind her teeth, like a memory she hadn't had yet. The reflection raised its hand, pressed its palm against the glass, and a real hand. Blood, not from contact, from recognition. A small slit appeared in her palm, a perfect mirror of the line on the glass. And in that blood, a shape formed, a symbol, Circle 6. The reflection stepped aside, revealing the room behind it, but not the one she was standing in. It was the same space, but wrong. The wallpaper was moving, the ceiling was breathing, and in the center, a chair, facing the mirror, empty, waiting. A line appeared at the top of the mirror's frame, carved as if etched by a fingernail. "Sit before you are summoned, or you will be shown before you are ready." Iris backed away, but the floor beneath her tilted. She fell into the mirror, not shattered, not cut, just passed through, like glass had been invitation all along. And suddenly, she was in the other room, same space, no exit, the mirror behind her now black, and in the chair, no longer empty, someone Saturday there, wrapped in cloth, head tilted, mouth stitched shut, but its eyes were hers, and they opened slowly. The figure pointed to the floor, and written in ash beneath her feet, "Circle 6 is complete." But the mirror still remembers what you look like from the inside. Episode 7, Offerings Made of Breath. Intangible sacrifice. Language theft when every word you give is a piece you'll never get back. The air had changed. It felt heavier, not thick like fog, but full, as though someone had been storing breaths in the walls, saving them for a ritual no one remembered agreeing to. The journal was clear. Circle 7 requires no knife, only truth, exhaled freely, but it warned, too. Once spoken, the offering is not yours anymore, and it will be spoken back, with a mouth not your own. Iris read the instructions in silence, then stood in the center of the study, where the floorboards had begun to hum again, and placed the copper bowl on the floor. No fire, no blood, just words. She knelt, closed her eyes, and whispered the first truth she had never said aloud. "I lied to my mother when she died. I told her he was coming." The copper bowl warned. She exhaled again. "I don't want to finish the circle. I just don't want to die." Without knowing what it saw, the bowl pulsed red, The air vibrated, the floor trembled beneath her knees. And something listened. She kept going. Her voice cracked. Her memories surfaced, like bodies rising in still water. Each word spilled into the bowl. Not heard, but taken. And as she emptied herself, the walls began to whisper back. Not loud, not harsh, just repeating the exact phrases she had just spoken. But the voice was wrong. It was hers, but younger, colder, detached, like the echo had learned to speak without needing a soul. Then came a phrase she hadn't spoken. He didn't die in the attic. Iris opened her eyes. What? He died inside you? And you never told the others? She gasped, staggered to her feet. The copper bowl boiled dry. Smoke rose and ended. Letters appeared, written in vapor, untranslatable, but felt. She knew what it meant. Your breath feeds us. Your silence starves us. But your lies make us real. She tried to speak, tried to say her name. Nothing. Her voice was gone. Not hoarse, not blocked. Taken. She grabbed the journal, flipped to the next page, and scrawled in the corner. Added after all the others. Do not offer what you need to remember. It will be used to speak against you. That night, Iris heard her voice on the radio. She hadn't turned it on. The station was dead air, except for her, whispering her own secrets and laughing. Episode 8, the ritual they performed in reverse. Chronological defiance. Backward summoning when time itself becomes the gate, and memory walks out facing the wrong direction. They had done it forward. That was their first mistake. 12 of them. Copes, salt, symbols. They lit candles, chanted in sequence, spoke the names they barely understood. And they waited, but nothing came. Because what they called doesn't answer to the future. It listens only to what is being undone. Iris stood in the cellar now. The page from the journal was nearly unreadable. Black out, overwritten, burned at the corners. But one phrase remained. Walk the circle backwards. Speak the words in reverse. Begin with the end. She took a breath, unlit the candles. Yes, I'm late. Snuffed them in the same order her father had once lit them. Stepped counterclockwise across the sigil her father carved into the stone 25 years ago. And with each step, the shadows grew longer. But there was no flame, only cold, dense, dripping silence, like a memory trying to freeze back into form. She spoke the first phrase, backwards, tongue tangled, sound bending wrong. But the cellar shifted. It went from nowhere, a groan in the walls, the kind of noise a house makes when it realizes it was built atop something that wants to move. She kept going, word by word, backward, unraveling language like a spool of thread that had once held her father's sanity together. And, a knock, not on the door, on the wall, from the inside. She stopped, held her breath. The air around her shimmered, like the basement was underwater, but only emotionally. And from the corner, in the dark, a figure stepped backward into being, not summoned, rewound. A man, roped, eyes closed. His body moved like a memory being, rewound. Hands lifting, then lowering, feet stepping where there had been no footsteps. And when he finally turned to her, his eyes snapped open. It was her father, but younger, fractured, flickering, like a reel of film, playing the wrong way. He opened his mouth, no sound. Then he began to speak, in perfect reverse, words she didn't understand. But her blood did. Her ears bled, not from pain, from agreement. Because something inside her was answering him, she fell to her knees, spoke the final backward phrase, not knowing what it meant. And the circle lit, not with fire, with absence, a hollow light, a negative glow. And from beneath the floor, a voice echoed, you finished what was never started. You started what was never meant to end. Her father collapsed into ash. The circle dissolved, but her skin was now marked with his words, written in reverse, only legible in mirrors. And all of them said the same thing. He's facing the wrong way. That's why we can't see him. Episode 9, Blood of the One Who Forgot. Ritual amnesia. Dead of flesh when forgetting isn't safety, but the price I'm paid. They said forgetting protected you. That if you didn't remember the circle, it couldn't find you. But the truth was worse. Forgetting wasn't escape. It was debt. And blood was the only currency left. To pay for silence, Iris found her name on a list. 12 names, written in red wax. A 13th space left blank. Her father, the others, all marked with a symbol beside them. A crescent, a hand, a root. But one name stood out. Theo Arlen. No symbol, just a single word carved beside it. Forgotten. He had been 17 when the first ritual was done. A friend, a believer. But something broke in him after Circle 4. They said he walked away, moved to the coast, never spoke again about what happened. He forgot. Iris found him in a care home 3 towns over. Name changed, face half paralyzed, eyes distant. He didn't recognize her, didn't know who he was, but when she showed him the wax-sealed journal, his hand began to tremble, and he whispered, "I was the mouth, but I swallowed it instead." That night, she brought him back to the house, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The circle couldn't be completed without him, not because he remembered, but because it chose to forget. Rite 9 didn't require intent, just his presence. In a single drop of blood, she laid him in the attic. Inside the salt ring her father had once feared, she sliced her palm, drew the symbol beside his name on the list. A spiral turned inward, and, done, she pricked his finger. One drop, it fell into the ring. He screamed, sudden, violent, not from pain, but recognition. His eyes snapped open, and every memory poured back into him, like water bursting through rotted wood. He saw the 12, the rites, the mistake. He saw her, and whispered, "You're not the 13th, you're the first. We called you before you were born." The salt caught fire, the floor pulsed. Theo ceased, then stilled, then smiled, and with his last breath, he said, "I remember the voice now, and it's yours." Iris screamed, but not because he died, because she understood. Forgetting doesn't protect you, it just makes you useful to the thing that waits between memories. That night, her journal updated on its own. The 13th space was no longer blank. Next to her name, a symbol drawn in blood, a single, hollow eye, open, and looking back, episode 10, circle 11, the gate beneath her pulse. Living portal, heartbeat ritual when the gate is not under the floor, but beneath the skin of the chosen. The journal bled, not metaphorically, literally, as Iris turned to the page marked circle 11. The parchment moistened beneath her fingers, staining red like something beneath the ink had been waiting to leak. There were no diagrams, no symbols, only a sentence, scribbled in a frantic hand. The gate was never buried, it was born, and beneath that, in darker, almost bruised lettering, count the pulse. When it reaches 13, do not flinch. Her heart had been racing for days. Every ritual, every vision, every whisper from salt and root and ash had left it louder in her ears. But now, it was rhythmic, focused, like her own body was tuning itself to something else's tempo. She lay down in the attic, candles encircling her in wax tears, salt circle redrawn, hands on her chest, and she waited. 1 beat, 2, 3, a whisper echoed inside her bones. Not in the room, within her marrow. 4, 5, 6, the room began to dim, though no flame had died. Shadows grew where light had no business retreating. 7, 8, 9, a sound like a locked door trembling. Inside her chest, not above, not below. Inside, 10, 11, 12, her body arched. No, pain, pressure, like something beneath the surface, was waiting for permission. 13, she did not flinch. Her heartbeat stopped for exactly 13 seconds, and in that stillness, something stepped forward. She felt it in her arteries. First, cold, not icy, but ancient, like her blood remembered, a name it had been taught to forget. Then the pain came, not sharp, not tearing, stretching, as if her veins were widening to allow something through. She screamed without sound. Her eyes rolled back, and the journal ignited. Without flame, pages burning in reverse, ash forming letters in the air. The gate beneath your pulse has opened. What you carry no longer belongs to you. She awoke on the floor. Heartbeat returned, but too slow, too heavy, like each thump carried weight from somewhere else. She pulled up her sleeve. A new vein had formed along her wrist, but it pulsed counterclockwise, and beneath the skin, a symbol glowed faintly. 13 spokes, radiating from a hollow center. That night, when she stood near mirrors, her reflection delayed, half a second behind, as if it had to travel to find her. And in her dreams, she did not sleep. She walked through blood vessels the size of cathedrals, toward a heartbeat that no longer felt entirely human. Episode 11, the fire that didn't burn, preserving flame. Eternal vessel when the ritual fire is not meant to destroy, but to make something last forever. The final rite before the 13th was supposed to be flame, but the journal warned, this fire does not consume, it remembers, it keeps what must never fade. Iris stood at the center of the old greenhouse, not by choice. The journal had said only this: build no altar, grow no circle, just return where the sun once touched life. And her father's old greenhouse, buried in ivy, was now a hollow skeleton of glass and rot. But when she stepped inside, the wind stopped, as if the place had been waiting. for its next breath to be lit. The instructions were carved into a broken pane, not by hand, but by heat. Place the object, ignite the past, seal the spirit, and do not move. When it watches, she didn't know what the object was until she found the box beneath the soil. Her father had buried it in ceramic, wrapped in wax cloth, sealed with bone thread. Inside, a piece of hair, a tooth, a photograph of a child whose eyes were scratched out, and one word written in salt, Eleanor. She didn't know who Eleanor was, but the photo looked like her, too much like her. She placed the box in the center of the greenhouse, surrounded it with candle wicks dipped in oil, but didn't light them. Instead, she cut her palm again, let the blood soak into the soil, and whispered, "Preserve what you took from me. Let her remain, so I may finish this." The candles ignited, not with fire, but with light. Blue, still, cold, and the air around the box shimmered, as if a boundary had been drawn in invisible heat. Then it came, not a figure, not a shape, a presence, heavy, unblinking. She couldn't see it, but she could feel where not to look. And then the voice came, from the burning that did not burn. "You asked to keep her, then finish the circle, or I will take what you sealed." The fire did not move. It simply waited, like it had all the time in the world, to decide whether to preserve or to erase. Iris couldn't breathe. She felt the heat in her memories, moments boiling away, names, faces, smells. She dropped to her knees, clutching the earth, and screamed, "I don't remember who I am anymore." And the flame answered, "Good, you're ready to carry someone else." Then the light vanished. The candles went cold. The box sealed itself and carved into the floor beneath her. "This is not your soul anymore. This is the vessel. Keep it warm." That night, Iris lit every candle in the house, not for comfort, to trap the cold she now carried in her chest, because her body no longer held only one memory, and the child in the photo was starting to blink. In her dreams, Episode 12, The 13th Circle begins to close. Self-completing ritual, inheritable when the final gate no longer waits for consent. She didn't draw the circle. She woke to find it already there, etched in black salt, wrapped around her bed, its 13 points pulsing with a dim red glow, as if breathing beneath the floorboards. The journal was gone, burned in her sleep, a pile of cold ash at her feet, but its final entry had already branded itself. Beneath her skin, a single line, now rising across her ribs like a scar carved from memory. "It closes with or without you." Iris stepped barefoot into the circle, not to begin the final rite, to answer it, because this time, it had summoned her. The house groaned. Windows wept condensation from no source, and every light bulb pulsed with heartbeat rhythm, not hers, but the one she begun carrying. Saint's Circle 11, the other pulse. In the center of the circle stood a mirror, shattered. Its shards floated midair, suspended, trembling. Each one showed a different version of her. One screaming, one burning, one kneeling, one smiling. Only one shard was blank, waiting. She stepped toward it, and it lit, not with reflection, with invitation. A voice spoke behind her ear, her own voice, but older, eased. "You were never meant to close the circle. You were meant to be what it closes around." She turned. The house was gone. Walls had folded into shadow. Now she stood in an open void, lined with 13 silhouettes, hooded, faceless, each holding one page from the lost journal. And in the center, a 13th figure, barefoot, blood-streaked, unhooded. It was her, but not present-day Iris. It was the girl from the photograph, Eleanor, alive, reclaimed, watching. She raised her hand, and the others followed. As one, they chanted it in words, but in intention, a sound that was not heard, but understood. And with every syllable, the floating shards began to spin, slowly, then faster, until they cut the air into pieces. Then silence, and one final line spoken from the dark. "What you finish, finishes you." The shard stopped, fell, and in their place, a perfect, glowing ring of light, drawn midair, closed, with Iris at its center. No candles, no circle on the ground, no voice calling her out, because now, she was the 13th. The circle no longer needed salt, or blood, or books. It needed her to stop running, and she had. She knelt in the center, spoke the only words she still remembered. "I'm here." The ring vanished. The silhouettes collapsed into dust, and the girl, the one who had never left, walked toward her, spoke one sentence into her ear. Now we begin. Episode 13, what waited inside the center. Finale, ritual embodiment, sacred dread when the circle closes and truth no longer hides. There was no explosion, no wind, no light from the sky, just Stillness, the kind that settles after something older than consequence has finally been understood. The 13th circle had closed, but it hadn't sealed anything away. It had opened her. Iris stood at the center, barefoot on a floor that was no longer wood, no longer stone, but something alive, something shaped by every step taken. To reach this moment, the figures were gone, the house forgotten, the air heavy with recognition. And, she felt it, not outside, not below, inside, not a presence. A knowing. The journal was never meant to guide. It was meant to prepare her body, to carry something language could not hold. And now it had arrived, a voice, not from above, not from within her ears. It rose like steam through her lungs, gentle, inescapable. We did not wait to be worshipped. We waited to be understood. She tried to speak, but her tongue no longer shaped words, only intention. So she asked, silently, "What are you?" That answer came in silence, but she felt it in her spine, as if her bones were listening. We are what was never written, what was erased before the first faith could form. We are not gods. We are memory, and memory requires a body. Iris dropped to her knees, not in fear, not in prayer, in acceptance, because the circle had never asked for sacrifice. It had asked for a vessel, and she had arrived, empty enough to be filled. The ground pulsed once, and from the void, a figure stepped forward, not monstrous, not divine. A girl, Eleanor, 13 years old forever, eyes full of time, hands outstretched like offering or invitation. She didn't speak. She merged. No blood, no scream, just light, folding into Iris, like ink returning to parchment. And when it was dawning, Iris stood, but she was not alone. Now she carried the circle. It was not drawn. It was alive. Each step she took, the world whispered beneath her feet. She is the 13th, and the 13th remembers us. There were no more rites to complete, no more pages to burn, no more voices to summon, only echoes left to collect, only eyes left to open, because the circle hadn't closed to seal something in. It had closed to be carried forward, and for the first time in centuries, something inside the cinder had someone to walk with.